Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was embarrassed in public, ignored by staff, and treated like a burden until her husband, a retired federal judge, walked in and changed everything. Jasmine Crockett had no time to slow down, not that day. She had been running on empty for nearly 3 weeks, committee hearings in Sacramento, a policy discussion in San Antonio, and a last-minute town hall in Tulsa. Her carry-on had hardly been touched between stops, but today had nothing to do with her job. Today was personal. She arrived at Dallas Love Field just after 6:30 in the morning. Her cousin Devin had died, only 42. Liver failure. They grew up together like siblings. Missing the funeral was never an option, no matter how exhausted she was or how little rest she had gotten wearing a plain black dress beneath her blazer. Jasmine moved quickly but calmly through the airport, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Reading updates from her assistant as she headed for the Southwest check-in counter. Her flight to Jackson, Mississippi, was set to board at 7:10. The first sign of trouble was the expression, not long-lasting, just a quick shift. The young man at the desk looked up from his screen, then back down, smirking slightly. Jasmine knew that reaction. She had seen it too many times. In her life, she gave him her boarding info. An ID: I'm on flight 2376 to Jackson. I need to check this bag. The agent tapped some keys, then frowned slightly. You are not in the system. Jasmine kept her composure. That cannot be right. I checked in earlier. Right here. She held out her phone. The boarding pass is right here. He glanced at it, then back at her. Looks like your seat was changed. You'll have to wait. Changed to what? He did not respond right away. Instead leaned back in his seat and signaled to another employee nearby. Hey, can you help me look at this? Jasmine looked at the time, 6:43. Her heart started to beat faster, but her tone stayed even. Can you please explain the issue? I have a funeral I need to attend. The second staffer came over, barely acknowledged. Hershey's marked for random screening, she said plainly. We need to recheck her credentials. Jasmine blinked. Excuse me? It's standard. No, it is not. I have flown this route 4 times this year. This has never happened before. The first agent stood. Ma'am, if you do not calm down, we'll have to move you aside. Jasmine raised her eyebrows. Calm down. I am simply asking a question. That is enough. Please step over there. People in line had started to watch, phones out. Someone muttered, That's Congresswoman Crockett, but it made no difference here. Jasmine stepped aside, jaw clenched. She pulled out her government-issued ID. I have nothing to hide. This is official travel. They barely glanced at it. The second agent said, It does not bypass procedures. A sharp twist formed in her gut. This was not a mix-up. This felt intentional. Still, she kept her tone steady. I will follow whatever is required, but I want to speak with a supervisor. That is when the first agent gestured to someone off to the side and said, Security, please. Yet Jasmine had not raised her voice, had broken no rules, and now she was being treated like a threat. Jasmine stood at the edge of the counter, arms folded, eyes focused on a stain in the carpet. It was one of those moments that called for silence, not surrender. She would not let them see her falter. She could feel the crowd behind her watching, some whispering, others quietly recording on their phones. A woman caught her eye and mouthed, I'm sorry. Jasmine gave a small nod. She was grateful, but sympathy would not solve this. 2 TSA agents approached, not rushing, but not relaxed either. That careful pace that comes with suspicion. Already decided. Ma'am, come with us, please, one of them said. For what? Jasmine asked. Still in place, her voice steady. Not loud random screening. Please do not make this more difficult than needed. She slowly handed them her ID and boarding pass again. I already checked in. This is official government travel. That badge is real. The only problem here is the one being created. The officer did not even glance at the ID. No follow-up, ma'am, please, he repeated. We are not requesting. And there it was. The quiet warning. Jasmine looked over at the gate display. Flight 2376 was still listed as on time, boarding in 10 minutes. She thought of her mother waiting in Jackson, already texting her about seating. She thought about Devin's daughter, who had asked if Auntie Jazz would speak at the service. She closed her eyes for a moment, took a breath, then walked with the officers. They led her away from the waiting crowd, through a side door near the end of the gate terminal. The hallway was still fluorescent lights humming faintly above. Third officer approached halfway down, speaking in a low voice. Jasmine could not make out. The others nodded, then turned to her again. We will need to perform. Full body search, one of them said. And your bag needs to be inspected. No warrant. No valid reason, a clear explanation. She said quietly. You are crossing a line you are not meant to, one of them replied. You can file a report later. Jasmine did not respond after that. She held her arms out, allowing the pat-down to proceed. Precise and cold, her bag was unzipped, her toiletries unpacked, her documents examined. No one offered any answers. 10 minutes passed, then 15. She finally spoke again. Can someone explain the seat reassignment? Why I was pulled aside? One officer glanced at her. I do not manage seating. That is up to the airline. We were called because you were being uncooperative. Uncooperative. Her voice cracked slightly. I asked a question. I did not raise my voice. I did not disobey. I followed every instruction. He shrugged. We react based on the call. That is our responsibility. Jasmine checked her watch. It was 16. Her plane had already left the runway. For a moment she stayed silent, then lowered herself onto the cold metal chair along the wall. Her hands rested still on her knees, eyes focused straight ahead. She was not just missing a plane now. She was missing a farewell. She was missing a promise she had made. She was being punished, openly. For no reason, one of the TSA officers stepped outside to make a call. The other leaned back against the wall, arms folded, looking anywhere. But at her, Jasmine pulled out her phone and typed one message. I was stopped. Missed my flight. I need you here. She hit send and waited, but the next person who walked through those doors would not need to ask questions the way Jasmine had. He would not have to. Franklin Rhodes had always carried himself with quiet confidence. He did not need to raise his voice to be heard. 30 years as a judge had taught him. Tune often carried more than volumes till, when his wife texted just 3 words, I need you. His chest tightened. He was already driving, close to the terminal. Jasmine had asked him not to come in earlier, said it was a short trip, nothing to stress over. But now something was wrong, and when she said need, she meant immediately. Inside the airport, Jasmine sat by herself. The TSA officers had moved a few feet away, speaking in hushed tones, occasionally glancing her way. Her suitcase was half closed, her paperwork placed back in disorder. She had repacked slowly, on her own, under their watch. Her blazer was creased, her hair-ons neatly styled now hung in soft curls. Around her cheeks she looked steady, but inside a quiet anger smoldered. The same airline worker who flagged her before now stood near the hallway, corner, arms crossed, gaze downcast like he just wanted it to end. The one who called for security never came back. At 7:36. The automatic doors slid open. Franklin entered wearing a dark gray coat, black trousers, and a maroon scarf, a gift from Jasmine last Christmas. His steps were calm, his expression alert. Jasmine rose as soon as she saw him. She said nothing. She did not have to. He scanned the officers, the agents, the open bag on the table, then looked to his wife. Are you all right? She nodded once. He turned to the nearest TSA officer. Who is responsible here? The officer paused. Sir, may I ask who you are? I am Franklin Rhodes, retired federal judge, 9th Circuit. Who is in charge? The officer blinked, momentarily unsure. One moment. Franklin turned to Jasmine. What happened? I asked why my seat had changed. They said I was confrontational. I showed my credentials. They ignored them, then I missed my flight. Did you raise your voice? No. Cause a disruption? No. The officer returned, now followed by a supervisor. Wearing a lanyard and carrying a radio, the supervisor held out a hand. Halfway. Judge Rhodes, we're not aware that. Franklin did not shake it. Why? Was my wife's seat reassigned? I would need to confirm with the gate, then go confirm. The supervisor nodded and hurried off. Franklin faced the airline agent again, the same one who had smirked earlier. Why did you involve security? She refused to back down. She asked why her seat changed. Did she shout? No. Did she threaten anyone? No. Franklin leaned in. Just enough. You realize what you did qualifies as intentional escalation, correct? That you called for security without proper reason, that her identification was dismissed, that you detained a federal official without any real suspicion. The agent swallowed hard. I did not know who she was. Franklin stared without blinking. That should not make a difference. A heavy silence followed, so thick it seemed to hum. One of the travelers who had been watching Earlier walked past the hallway, noticed what was going on, and lifted her phone again. Word was getting around. Another officer entered, the one who had missed the earlier part. He noticed Franklin, saw the badge, caught Jasmine's look, and leaned to whisper to the supervisor. Then the apologies started. "Ma'am, we are very sorry for—" "No," Franklin cut in. "She does not need you to apologize. What she needed was respect. 20 minutes ago." The supervisor looked uncomfortable. "We would like to offer a new booking. First class on the next flight." Jasmine shook her head. "He is not doing this to give me a better seat. He wants you to understand something. You do not get to treat people this way. Not me. Not anyone." But by that point, the moment to care had already passed. Franklin did not raise his voice. He never needed to. His tone was firm but steady, the kind of calm that fills a room like pressure. Silent but heavy. The gate manager arrived shortly after, out of breath, holding a clipboard, with a look that said he already knew. This was damage control. His eyes shifted between the TSA officers, the airline staff, and the pair standing together like a wall that would not move. "Judge Rhodes, Congresswoman Crockett, I save." Franklin said, "We are not here for greetings. I want one thing, a name." The manager blinked. "I am sorry?" "The name of the person who contacted security, the one who chose to treat my wife as a threat for simply asking about her boarding pass." The manager hesitated. "That is a personnel issue." Franklin stepped closer, closing the gap. "So is discrimination." His voice stayed even. The manager looked from Jasmine back to Franklin, shifting his stance. "I understand your concern. We are reviewing—" "No," Franklin interrupted again. "You are covering yourselves." The TSA agents now stood in the background, saying, "Nothing." The young officer who had dismissed Jasmine earlier was gone, probably somewhere down the concourse, avoiding what this situation had become. Jasmine remained quiet. Her arms rested lightly across her front. Her silence was intentional. She watched it unfold. But she was not going to make this easier for them. Franklin spoke again. "You let your team turn a calm situation into a security issue. You dismissed valid federal ID. You held a sitting congresswoman. You blocked her travel without a legal reason, all because someone disliked being questioned." The gate manager looked tense. I will speak with my regional manager. You will do more than that. I assure you, Judge Rhodes will call for a full internal review." Jasmine finally said something, calm but pointed. "Do not start that just because he showed up. You should have started it the second I was stopped." For a second, the area stayed still. Overhead, the intercom called boarding for another flight, another gate, another set of people. But here, time had stopped. Franklin checked his watch. "You cost her a funeral. That cannot be undone, but you will make a public apology. Not just to her, but to everyone else you have done this to without a second thought." The manager opened his mouth, then shut it again. Jasmine looked him straight in the eye. "And no, you do not get to reshape this. Do not act like this was confusion. This was a clear judgment call, loud and obvious." By now, more travelers had noticed what was happening. A man in a baseball cap stood watching from a distance. A middle-aged woman leaned toward her husband and quietly pointed toward the couple. Someone else, younger, maybe in their early 20s, sat by a charger and typed quickly into their phone. The story had already started to spread. Jasmine lifted the strap of her bag and turned to Franklin. "Let's go, you sure?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. There's nothing left for them to explain. They walked toward the exit without turning around. No escort from security, no nervous airline staff trying to smooth things over, no free upgrades or travel coupons, just silence. And behind them, a wave of regret none of those people had expected to feel that morning. But what followed after they left would be larger than anything that happened inside. By the time Jasmine and Franklin reached the parking lot, her phone was already lighting up with missed calls and messages. She ignored everyone. Her hand gripped the suitcase handle, but she did not move toward the car right away. She needed a moment, not just air but space to cool the heat rising in her chest. Franklin stood, quietly beside her, calm as always, watching the terminal doors like he still expected them to offer answers. "They did not think I would show up," he finally said, voice low. "They did not think anyone would care." Jasmine looked at him. "I know." He glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded, but it was one of those nods that meant more than it looked. Not the kind that says yes, but the kind that says, "I will be all right later." Inside the terminal, the ripple had already started. Clips were online. One captured the exact moment. Jasmine was walked away from the gate, her head held high, arms by her side, surrounded by officers who would not look her in the eye. Another video showed Franklin asking for names. It was spreading faster than any apology could reach. In a small break room at the back of the Southwest office, the young gate agent sat slouched in a chair. His badge read, Cullen. Hands tightly clenched, he stared down at the floor. The manager stood near the door, arms crossed. "You could have just changed her seat," the manager said softly. That was all she asked. "I did not know who she was," Cullen muttered. "That does not give you permission to treat someone like that, no matter who they are. I thought she was just being difficult." She asked a question. "That is not a problem." Cullen said nothing. He did not have to. The reality was settling in. Not just that he had mishandled it, but that the whole world had seen it. That the woman he dismissed with a sigh was someone who understood authority because she had earned it. And she had done it without ever raising her voice. Now every step and word was under a microscope. Outside, Franklin leaned on the back of the car, while Jasmine stood by the trunk, finally scrolling through the messages on her phone. One from a staff member in D.C. said a journalist had already reached out. Another from her aunt in Jackson read, "He would have been proud of you, Jazz. Do not let them make you small." Jasmine took a breath. "They will try to twist this." "Let them try," Franklin said. "It is already out there. I just wanted to go to a funeral." "I know." A long pause. She looked up at him. "Did I handle it the right way?" Franklin tilted his head slightly. "You did not give them what they wanted. That is more than most people could do. This was not just about being right. It was about being a person and watching that humanity get brushed aside like it did not matter." Inside, the regional supervisor from the airline had arrived. Statements were being collected. Crisis teams had already started drafting careful wording that sounded sorry, but avoided admitting fault. That usual line, one big companies never cross. But something about this was sticking. It was not just about Jasmine anymore. People saw their mothers, sisters, wives in that video. They recognized the attitude, the brush off, the look that said, "You are out of place here, even when all your documents say you are not." And they were upset. Apologies followed, first inside the company, then online. The airline posted a short message a few hours later. "We regret the incident involving Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and are reviewing our procedures to ensure all passengers are treated with respect and professionalism." No names, no direct admission, but that no longer mattered, because respect should not depend on the situation, and dignity does not need a title. But the story was not finished. Not for the people who watched it unfold. Not for those quietly recalling their own moments of being treated the same way. Later that night, Jasmine sat at the edge of a hotel bed in Jackson, looking at an untouched tray of room service. Franklin had gone downstairs to make a few calls. The memorial had already ended. Her family sent her photos. They tried not to sound disappointed, but Jasmine could still hear it, in the pauses between their words, in the silence that came after, "We missed you." She scrolled through the headlines on her phone. Congresswoman Crockett removed from flight after gate dispute. TSA, airline under criticism for detaining federal official. Passenger videos spark public anger. Jasmine did not want to read them. She had lived it. She did not need another version. But what she had not expected, what stopped her for a second, were the comments. Not just the outrage, though there was plenty. It was the familiarity. People sharing their own moments. Teachers, nurses, veterans, older passengers, all describing times they were pulled aside, questioned, treated like problems, just for standing in the wrong line or asking something someone did not like. A woman in Arizona wrote, "I did not have a title, so they talked to me. Like I was nothing. I did not fight. I just cried in the bathroom." A man in Oakland posted, "How they treated her, that is how they treated my father. He missed his heart surgery. No one said sorry." The messages kept coming. Jasmine felt a tightness in her chest. This was not just about what happened at Gate 22B. It was something older, something that happened too often. Franklin came back a few minutes later, set his phone down on the table. "You are everywhere," he said. "I know." He watched her for a moment. "Do you want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "Not yet." He sat beside her. "You did the right thing even when they did not." Jasmine looked out the window. The city outside was quiet, streetlights buzzing, cars moving slowly. "They acted like I did not exist," she said finally. "Like I did not belong even after I showed them exactly who I was." Franklin nodded. "Do you think they will learn from this?" "I am not sure," she said, "but maybe someone else will. Because that is the thing about moments like this. They stay with you. Not always with the people who caused them, but with the ones who lived through them, and with those watching, remembering, realizing. This has happened to me too." Later that week, Jasmine returned to D.C. She turned down the morning show invites. She did not want her image to become a symbol. She wanted discussion, not attention. So instead, she wrote a letter. It was published in several newspapers. In it, she said, "This is not just about one gate or one airline. It is about how easily some in charge forget basic respect, how quickly someone's voice can be pushed aside when it does not come with status or background, and how dignity should not be something granted only to those who are known. It should be standard." Every single time, that line was shared more than any other. Eventually, the airline gave a longer apology. This time, they named her directly. But by then, the public had already decided how they saw the story. In their version, Jasmine Crockett was not just a congresswoman. She represented anyone who had ever been ignored, silenced, or dismissed like their voice did not count. She did not shout. She did not threaten. She stood still and let everyone see what it looks like when someone worthy is treated like they are not. But the final word did not belong to her alone. It belonged to everyone who had waited for someone to speak when no one else would. 1 week later, Jasmine Crockett sat alone on a bench outside Union Station in D.C. She had just left a meeting with a group of young interns working on civil rights. They did not ask about bills or votes. They asked about the airport. One of them, a 19-year-old from Kansas named Talia, said quietly, "I saw the video. That has happened to me. I did not know what to do when it did. You didn't say much either, but you made it loud." That stayed with Jasmine, because sometimes the moment does not need volume. It needs quiet, the kind of quiet that forces people to see what they are doing. She remembered the look on that gate agent's face when Franklin asked for his name, the silence that followed, the realization that he had not just disrespected a traveler, but had shown something about himself he probably was not ready to see. She remembered what Franklin told her the night they got back home to Fort Worth. Most people think power is about badges or titles, but real power is knowing who you are and not letting anyone take that away, no matter how hard they try. That was the lesson, not just for the airline, but for everyone watching. Because the truth is, this was not a rare case. It was just the one caught on camera, the one that happened to someone with a platform, a name, a voice too strong to ignore. But what about the ones not in Congress? What about the mother on her way to her daughter's graduation? The man flying for a job interview? The grandmother returning home to bury her brother? What happens when they are dismissed? Franklin was right. It should not take a title to be treated with simple respect. Jasmine leaned back on the bench, watching people walk by. Coffee cups in hand, briefcases, headphones in, heads down, everyone moving fast, just hoping the world lets them be. She picked up her phone and wrote one more message to her team. Next town hall, we begin with a story, not about politics, but about people, about what happened at Gate 22B, because stories matter, not for the headlines, not for the drama, but because they show us ourselves and make us ask, if that had been me, what would I have done? Or more importantly, if I were the one in charge, how would I have treated her? The message was not about blame. It was about understanding, and the reminder that dignity is not a prize, it is a right. So, to anyone who has ever been talked over, brushed off, left out, to anyone who had to prove they belonged in a place they already had a ticket for, to anyone who stayed quiet out of fear, their tone might be turned against them. Your story matters, and one day, someone will tell it, whether or not there is a camera watching. So next time you are at a counter or sitting behind a desk, Look someone in the eye. Listen. Do not assume. Because how we treat people, when nobody is watching, says everything about who we are when everybody is. If this story made you feel something, anger, understanding, recognition, then share it. Do not let it be just another headline. Let it be a reminder. And if you want more real stories like this, stories that reflect, remind, and show us what respect looks like, subscribe, because truth deserves to be heard, and so do the people living it.